But in a situation where you find that a look at this,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, now we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and we have quite a number of stories here. The lead story, politics, APC crisis, twist as Tinubu, Fayemi resolve to work together. And then the story has the following writers. They have a long-standing relationship. That's Ekiti governor's spokesman. And then you have new alliance may shock many people. Faleke, others seek divine intervention for Asiwaju. Well, we are aware that thousands of ulamas are praying for the presidential hopeful Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, like we've seen in an interaction with his campaign organization. Also, you have the picture showing you the remains of late Professor Gidado Tahir at the National Mosque in Abuja for funeral prayers yesterday. You have below that pioneer Ubek Boss Tahir dies, buried in Abuja. At the very bottom, the stories say new Africa payment system to save $5 billion in fees, lift trade. Then you find civil defense employs 5,000 over 1.4 million applicants. You'd find details of that on page 6. The next story, I eat human organs, sell body parts. Zamfara car dealer confesses. Well, that's quite outrageous. You'd find details of that on page 7. But what kind of a man? Well, we'll now describe him as a cannibal, because who does that, really, if you think about it? At the top there, you would see NLNG to dedicate 100% cooking gas supply for domestic markets. And then you'd also see 6 years after, FG inaugurates EFCC board. The next one, type 2 polio hits 27 states. FCT with 395 cases. These are the stories on the front pages of on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
All right, with that, we'll move on to Guardian newspaper. And right at the top there, you'd see a story that says Twitter users intensify civic engagement, accountability as service is restored. And details of that story can be found on page 6. PGF DG wants APC caretaker panel sacked. We also have declare emergency on unemployment. Methodist Church tells federal government. Balogun Ibadan chiefs drop crowns, revert to original hierarchy. We also have northern youths threaten to shut region over tuition fees hike. All right, you see a pictorial there of Vice President Yemi Osinbajo with participants at the Leadership Enhancement and Development Program. Okay, the lead story that on the front page of Guardian newspaper says U.S. tightening policies, de-risking puts Nigeria's economy on red alert. And we have writers here that say policymakers of countries with high inflation debts to brace up. The debt financing servicing cost may rise to unsuitable level, IMF, World Bank warn. Federal government to fund 2020 budget 6.4 trillion naira deficit at higher cost. Direct investments won't respond to interest hikes, says Teriba. And Nigeria's market to expect higher interest, sources suggest. And at the bottom there, you'd find a story that says North Central legislators pass vote of confidence in Buni, endorse Bello for president. And these are the stories on the front page of Guardian newspaper.
All right, next we're looking at the Nation newspaper. And on the Nation, you'd find the lead story saying 2023 President, APC, PDP weigh options on zoning. You'd find the writers, parties reject claims by aspirants and supporters. You'd also find the stories at the very top. Members will pick PDP candidate, says IU. You'd find Dele Momodu to run. Ibadan High Chiefs drop crowns. Original concept restored. And then the next one, Twitter restoration, good for businesses. Government plans $500 million investment in technology for youth. And then the next one says NLNG to boost domestic market gas supply. These are the main stories on the Nation newspaper today.
Okay, with that, we'll take the next paper, which is Punch newspaper. The lead story there is Amotekun combs southwest forests for fleeing northwest terrorists. And we have writers there that say Ekiti Amotekun collaborating with hunters, farmers, forest guards to fish out criminals, bandits. And President's recent statement shows he doesn't understand how serious insecurity is, says Afenifere. We also have at the top there, Nigeria blames immunization suspension as 395 polio cases resurface, and 16-year-old can now receive COVID-19 jab, says National Primary Health Care, agency. If you go to the bottom there, you'd find NNPC, others may reconstruct federal roads in Ogun, and that's coming from, that's what the president is saying. We have Igbo has investments everywhere. We're not part of Biafra, coming from Umahi. And then we have court orders interim forfeiture of 110.4 million naira traced to teacher and accomplices. These are some of the top stories from Punch newspaper.
All right, on the Blueprint newspaper today, the lead story talks about politics as well. 2023 presidency, Osinbajo, Tinubu's supporters differ. North Central lawmakers back Bello. You'd find that on page 6. The writer says VP should have right of first refusal. Younger has pedigree. That's Osinbajo group. And then you find contesting against your mentor, not realistic. TSG tells Osinbajo. That's a Tinubu support group. You'd find also Ebonyi indigents in diaspora reject Umahi. You'd also see Momodu Ohuabunwa declare seek PDP ticket. And then below the pictorial, where we saw the president yesterday visiting Ogun State, and then you would find a story that says federal government corruption hurting nation's image, hindering foreign investment. With the writer, SGF inaugurates 23-man EFCC board. And then Aisha Buhari, APC to host Progressive Women's Conference. At the very bottom, you'd see insecurity. Northern leaders summon governors, others to Arewa House. Electoral bill, NAS surrenders to concur with Buhari next week. A man to die by hanging for killing colleague in Kogi. So these are the main stories on the front page of our newspapers today. All right, we have in the studio more like a friend of the house, really, because he's always here with us, giving us perspectives on all the stories that make the headlines. Talking about Nuruddin Abdullah, editor 21st Century Chronicle, here in the studio. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ibe. Good morning.
Well, it's been from one political story to another on all the newspapers that we are looking at today. It appears that Bola Ahmed Tinubu seemed to have opened the Pandora's box. Everyone is now declaring his intention.
Yeah, the Bodolian chief, ended all the speculations and did the needful. He didn't tell anybody. We just saw him coming out from a closed-door meeting with President Buhari. Then he addressed the press. They have just informed Mr. President of my intention to contest for presidency 2023. Then say you are a kingmaker. I say, yeah, nothing wrong in being here. And thereafter, we saw Umahi, Ibonyi governor. Oji Kalu is equally saying that he will soon meet with Mr. President. Mogalu, former CBN deputy governor, and so on and so forth. So 2022 is an election year. And, you know, we thought that maybe they will wait till around May, but this January. In fact, the first quarter of January itself, you know, I know politicians are going gaga. That is what should be expected. You know. And while all the contenders and pretenders, you know, there are all manner of presidential hopefuls. Some only on the streets, see posters. Some with some political parties. Some on radio and TV stations. And what have you. So we should expect more of them to come out. Some actually, there are serious ones, like Asiwaju is a serious one. Osibanjo has been pressurized to contest. Fayemi is there.
But we are seeing that Fayemi has resolved to work together with Tinubu. You know,
I don't know, maybe because, you know, Tinubu has candidacy, has factionalized the APC governors. Fayemi has been with El-Rufai for long, you remember that. And I think not recently I saw on the pages of newspapers, he was sponsoring adverts from pets for some months, you understand, advertising himself, he's of the new breed and what have you. Tinubu, you know, he has the likes of the governor of Kano. He's a point man, like his counterpart, even the KB governor, among the key actors that did not hide their election of Tinubu as the next presidential candidate. Then don't forget that there is the presidency group. You can call the cabal or the Buhari boys. We have the Attorney General, Minister of Justice Malemi is there. Sadia is there, Adama is there, Minister of Water Resources are there. They are the Buhari people, right? Some of them from the TBO days, the Buhari organization days, down to APP, AMPP, CPC, and APC now. So they believe that to consolidate on what Buhari's administration has achieved, you have to bring somebody from the inner caucus who has been understudying the man since 2001, the TBO days, to now. So they are getting their cards ready. And the generality of the governors are there. Buni is there. He believes that, you know, so far he has restored sanity into the party, pull out some opposition governors into the fold of the party. So it seems that maybe he can equally restore sanity into the entire system by being the president.
Okay,
well,
now
I guess only time will tell.
yeah, well, we actually have a lot of youths and, you know, civil society organizations coming out to say enough of the recycling, enough of election of older persons, you know, let the youth come out and, you know, contest.
Yes, because, you know, social media advocacy is different from real electionary per se. There are so many youths on the ballots during the last election, particularly 2019. You can count up to 5 or 6, but you can even identify as youth. Some of them less than 40, or just a little above 40, less than 50. But are the youths actually ready? And yes, unless age, like the president said, you know, when he became the president, I think about 6 years ago in South Africa, he said that he felt different. He's assuming that he was 30-something when he was Minister of the State, but now he came in as almost 70-something. So there are certain things that he cannot do because of that age limitation. But aside that, age is just one factor. We have governors who are under 50, and they're messing around. I don't need to mention names. They are bad ambassadors of the Nigerian youths. They are in power now. They have spent almost 6 years in power with nothing to show for it. We have people who are above 70. They are doing well. Just go to Northwest, for instance. There is a particular governor, whatever it is. He's over 70. But go and see what he's doing. So age is just one factor. And how ready are we? 2 things. Are we ready to galvanize our support and pick one of us to lead us? No. Instead, we have been divided, we have been factionalized. We are all advocating for one octogenarian or the other because of money. And do we even have the money to do it? Because the youth, unfortunately, instead of looking at Nigeria as a country, we are looking at, no, it's Ariwa, it's Ohaneze and Digbo, it's IPOV, it's Afenifere, it's Middle Belt, and what have you. What our grandparents did to get this country back from the colonial masters is what we are still advocating for. I look myself as a Hausa man, so it's Ariwa youth. Whatever. Even professional organizations. It's an Ariwa journalist, Yoruba journalist, you know what if it. So the thing is that bad. So we are not ready yet.
In fact, like we saw in one of the stories, you know, saying that the North Central are mobilizing support for Bello, you know, something like that.
Go and check. You'll see that these are the youth who should be at the forefront of getting power from the people who say are old.
But
what are we doing?
Yeah.
We are conversing for the same people who have failed.
The lead story is actually on Blueprint newspaper. North Central lawmakers, as a matter of fact, they are backing Yahaya Bello, you know, as their own candidate, who declared his intention way back, actually.
And look at it. Is it the work of the lawmaker to canvass support for a presidential candidate? No. What that simply means is they have jettisoned their own primary responsibility of making laws for the overall good of Kogi State. In fact, it is that ridiculous that last year they even tore some states as far back as North-East, as South-East, and South-South, as well as North-Central, going from one state assembly to the other, canvassing for support for Yahaya Bello. With all due respect, you understand, he is not a good ambassador of the youth. He's a youth. The age is on his side. But the idea is not there. You can't compare him with the Northwest governor I mentioned.
Some will disagree. They will say, well, he has been very active, you know, in the state.
He has been very active on the media, mobilizing, spending their money to sending lawmakers who should be making laws for the overall good of Kogi State to other state canvassing for support. And that means money. You understand? So is that a good ambassador? We look at Tinubu, for instance, now. What are his high points? He will say, look at Lagos. I'm a godfather. I'm a kingmaker. Yes, look at the kings I installed for my brother in Kogi.
But should we be worried? Should we be worried about godfatherism in our politics? You know, if you talk about kingmakers wanting to be king, is it not something of concern?
I don't think so, because everywhere there are kingmakers, whether they are pronounced or not, whether they are visible or they are not visible. In the United States, for instance, there are groups that endorse whoever wants to be president. If you don't get the support of those people, you will forget it. So now, it is not about whether you are a kingmaker or you are a godfather or what have you. You understand? What Nigerians are asking for is good governance.
What is that?
Can you deliver?
Would you say with Tinubu's age that he would be able to deliver, or would it be better for him to support a younger aspirant?
He has all constitutional right to vie for any office. Well, that is one. Let's go to the United States. How old is the current president of the country in Nigeria? So there are so many issues around this thing. Yes, we would love to have somebody younger who will be more energetic, proactive, you understand? Because there is a fact that by the time you reach certain age, you have to start battling certain issues. The moment you cross 50, getting to 60, you know, whether you are healthy or not, there are certain things that you have to draw the line. You understand? But look at the antecedent. What can he do? Yeah, Obama was elected as a younger person, but his deputy was over 70-something, and he's the president of the United States today. We have Macron, a younger person, and what have you. But let's look our geography here, the political ecosystem. Are you telling me that, okay, I should just kick out Tinubu, for instance, for Yahya Bello because of age? No. We have to look at antecedents. You understand? What are you coming to the table with? What have you done in the past that you are going to improve upon now? But people with no antecedents, people with no single legacy are clamoring to be president of the country. That is why they will come, they will spend months or years without a single blueprint.
Okay, now let's move on to another story. Now, there's a story on Daily Trust newspaper that says 6 years after federal government inaugurates EFCC board. Let's have your perspective on this and why it took so long for the board to be inaugurated.
Yes, you remember since the Buhari administration came, remember the crisis in EFCC. You can't have a board, a governing board, if the chairman is not even a substantive chairman. I think basically that is the reason for the delay. But nevertheless, yeah, a board was inaugurated yesterday. And you remember during the Ibrahim Magu's time, you know, he was nominated twice to the Senate, and he was rejected twice. And if you look at the confusion at the presidency at that time, he was nominated by the president to head an anti-corruption agency. Then another agency whose leadership has been nominated by has been installed by the president, wrote a damning report to the National Assembly saying that no, don't confirm this presidential nomination because of X, Y, Z. They did it for the first time. We thought that maybe there is a communication gap. But when the president was out, the vice president renominated the EFCC boss, Ibrahim Magu. The same agency, the DSS, sent another more damning report saying that this guy, instead of even being considered for a public office, he should be in prison. So that was the confusion. So throughout those 5-6 years.
And at the end of it, it turns out as if the DSS was right anyways.
After all.
Yes, but the DSS was right, but there is a problem. The problem is, we believe before Mr. Ayuba is nominated, particularly for EFCC job, talking about anti-corruption, you understand? All these agencies should give their report on you. That is what the president should have done. You have to go for, do you have any financial crime record? Do you have any drugs-related record? You understand? Are you involved in human trafficking? So NAPTIP, DSS, NDLEA, EFCC, even the police will submit their report to the president. If they clear you, then the next thing is to the State Assembly, to the National Assembly. But that was not done, or it was done, and instead of the DSF then under Lawal Daura, because of the infighting, you remember at that time, to table his report to the president, the nominating authority. No. He tabled the report to the confirming authority, the Senate. And that was the confusion. So it simply means that the presidency at that time was not even speaking in one voice. How can the president nominate somebody, then another agency under the presidency to send something that will counter the presidential nomination? So, you know, all that squabbles and what if you delayed, because the chairman is a member of the EFCC chairman is a member of the governing board. But they don't even have a substantive chair. How could they have even a governing board? So all those things.
Do you think that this have had, you know, maybe some kind of negative implication on the fight against corruption in the country?
Yeah, it did. It did. And look at how the Magu debacle ended. The moment you can appoint somebody with baggages, particularly to head a sensitive, somebody who has been accused of corruption, you understand, cannot head an anti-corruption agency. That was what the DSS report was saying. And you know, it was a public document. all the investigations they did, they lay it bare to the public. Say somebody like this, in fact, they say he shouldn't even be in the police in the first place. So, all these things, had questioned the integrity of the process itself. Particularly the Senate. They said, no, you have all this, how can we confirm you? So it actually questioned the integrity of the process. Look at it now. When somebody, Abdul Rashid, was appointed, he has no those baggages, for instance. And so people believe that, yes, now somebody who is he who comes to Equity must come with clean hands. So they say. So basically, that is the...
Okay, quickly before we wrap up, let's talk about Ibadan High Chiefs dropping their crowns. Ibadan Obas dropping their crowns, to becoming High Chiefs.
So you see the Ibadan as a garrison town. Remember the Ahmad Ali thing. During the last administration, there was serious crisis in the Oba Olubadan stool, to the extent that the governor, I think, sacked almost all of them, and there was court cases and what have you. So with the death of the immediate past Olubadan, the Balogun, clearly, just like constitutional, in those days, we read in history books, the Olubadan Empire was very democratic, with balance, with checks and balances, what have you. So even now, their hierarchy for succession is clear. So when the Oba died last week, I think it was Saturday, clearly, there is no any squabbles, no kingmakers. We know who is next in line. Even though when he came, there are issues and what have you. And even the Obas came, and they endorsed him as the next Olubadan, minus the former governor, what's his name, Ladoja. But even Ladoja came and supported something. So what is happening now, I think, is bringing the new Olubadan, the emergence of the new Olubadan will put to rest all those crises that happen. The court cases, the sack, the suspension, by the former administration. I think now there will be sanity in the system, particularly that the Oba now has both the chief support as well as the political support.
All right. Well, briefly, let's get your own reaction, on the lifting of ban or lifting of suspension on Twitter, just before you go in 1 or 2 minutes. Okay,
like you said, I belong to the law-abiding Nigerians who didn't go via VPN to continue tweeting. It's a good development, even though even though the impact was damning. You say 5 billion, it's more than 5 billion. I remember in the first month of the suspension, they said that the Nigerian businesses lost about 3.something billion. So certain millions were being lost per hour. You understand?
Yes.
So, but what the government did, what Nigerian government did is something that even other governments in Europe and North America are doing. Bringing the social media into, let them be responsible. Like now, they will pay tax. That is the most interesting part of it. We'll get money. They will register with CAC. There will be a country representative. So there will be a synergy between the security agencies and what if you, not just Mr. Ayuba will just wake up in the morning, I do something and you say that it's a threat to, all this has to be outlined and streamlined. So now at least there is a mind you. If you suspend Twitter now, you can't be in government forever. By the time you leave power, somebody will take over. You may be in the opposition. So it is you that whenever you tweet, you complain about certain issues, will just delete your tweet or even suspend you. So power is transient. If for instance, in slamming those suspension on Twitter was politically motivated, it is clear that those who did it will not last forever in power. They may turn up as opposition in the last couple of years.
And at that time, they will need Twitter, isn't
They
it?
will need Twitter, like they need Twitter to come into power. So by the time you're out of power, you may need Twitter to be hard. So I think it's a win-win, even though despite the massive losses. It's a win-win, particularly like the 6% tax on all adverts, the CAC registration, and now at least the government and the microblogging side are now in terms, so that they will be meeting. If there is, it's not just that when you do something, you say that apparently out of the blues, you say this thing is against this. No, there should be written or documented processes, and we hope that no government will come and slam, because Twitter is life.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the program this morning and sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We've been speaking with Nuruddin Abdallah, editor 21st Century Chronicle, and he's our reviewer of the day. We'll take a quick break now, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at the discussions around Twitter, in proper context. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that